Tonight, we're continuing to follow a major drug bust in Albuquerque. 4 million fentanyl pills seized.
You can hide more narcotics in an 18-wheeler than you could in a personal vehicle.
269 pounds of fentanyl pills and powder seized in this case could have yielded a staggering 6.9 million lethal doses.
A random traffic stop usually ends with a ticket, but for one driver, it ended with the exposure of a massive criminal empire. When police searched a car in Western Washington, they found more than just illegal pills. They found the thread that led them to a hidden fortress, and that is putting it lightly. Inside a quiet neighborhood, agents found more than 1,000 guns stacked like cordwood. The owner seemed like just another neighbor, but their secret business was fueling violence across the entire continent. The scale of this operation is something most people simply cannot comprehend. Invisible weapons hubs. The police who went inside said room to room were stacked with guns. So the question is, what was the owner doing with them? Federal agents kicked down the door of a quiet home in Centralia, Washington, expecting a standard substance bust. But what they found inside froze them in their tracks. It wasn't just piles of cash or bags of powder. It was an entire arsenal. Everyone is talking about assault rifles, heavy machinery, and enough firepower to start a small war. All of this was hidden in a neighborhood where kids ride bikes outside every single day. More than 1,000 guns, rifles, and pistols were stacked on the street and across the sidewalk after the raid. You never know what goes on behind these gates, and it is a lot of weapons. But here is the catch. This wasn't a one-off stash.
These are not firearms that are possessed lawfully by United States citizens, that are protected by our rights.
It was part of a massive invisible network that has been operating right under our noses for years. A factory of chaos. On the early morning of October 28, 2025, the fog still clung to the streets of Western Washington. Most people were still asleep, safe in their beds. But outside a specific property in Centralia, silence was about to break. Heavily armed teams from Homeland Security, the DEA, and local police moved into position. They had been watching this place for months. They knew something was wrong. But what they found when they finally breached the door was beyond their worst nightmares. This was not just a house, it was a command center. Inside, agents found a staggering amount of contraband. Officers then searched the home and found guns, more than a pound of methamphetamine, 1,000 fentanyl pills, as well as ingredients in a pill press that can make thousands of pills an hour. The agents discovered roughly 55 pounds of suspected fentanyl powder and more than 90,000 fentanyl pills. That is enough poison to wipe out a stadium full of people. But here is the catch. It wasn't just the substances that made the agents sweat. It was the guns. Scattered throughout the property were 24 firearms. These were not just old pistols for protection. The inventory included assault-style rifles and high-capacity weapons designed for one thing: sustained combat. It was a weapons factory in all but name, a hub used to arm a transnational criminal organization that had set up shop right in the middle of American suburbia. And get this raid was just one part of a massive sweep across Western Washington from Linwood to Sammamish. Law enforcement hit 12 different locations simultaneously. They arrested 10 people, including 25-year-old Luis Humberto Lamas Guzman and 44-year-old Eduardo Villanueva Chelio. These guys weren't low-level street dealers. They were key players in a conspiracy that linked narcotics, firearms, and organized crime across multiple counties. The scary part is how normal it all looked from the outside. One suspect, 30-year-old Jose Isabel Sandoval Zuniga, was caught driving his car like any other commuter. But inside his vehicle, police found about 3.5 pounds of fentanyl. What started as a traffic stop ended with all of these guns and prescription pills off the streets. This is what police found after randomly running the plates on a car parked outside a bar. A search of his home revealed even more substances and a loaded .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol. It was a stark reminder that this network was mobile, armed, and operating in plain sight. Authorities called this Operation Take Back America. It sounds like a movie title, but the stakes were very real. The goal was to dismantle a cartel network that had embedded itself deep within our communities. They recovered $40,000 in cash, which might sound like a lot, but in the world of cartel finance, that is just pocket change. The real value was in the hardware and the substances. Basically, this operation revealed a terrifying truth.
Of these drug dealers were playing Russian roulette with people's lives, pushing pills that were disguised as the prescription painkiller oxycodone, when in actuality, the pills were fentanyl.
The cartels are not just at the border, they are here. They are trafficking firearms alongside heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine. And they are doing it with an efficiency that rivals major corporations. They have supply chains, logistics managers, and enforcers. And now they have stockpiles of weapons sitting in American neighborhoods ready to be used or shipped south to fuel the violence. But finding the stash was only the beginning of the story. The investigation uncovered that these weapons were likely destined for a much darker purpose than just protecting a substance house. They are trying to figure out exactly what this person or this organization was doing with the weapons. They asked if these were being sold to gangs or somebody else, or if this was related to something even more dangerous. At this point, they are not certain. The specific types of rifles found suggest they were being prepped for major conflict. This discovery in Washington was a wake-up call. It showed that the flow of illegal goods isn't a one-way street. Substances come north, but guns go south. And the people facilitating this trade are often living right next door. The authorities had to use every tool in their box. SWAT teams from Seattle and Snohomish County worked alongside specialized units from the Washington State Patrol. Even the IRS got involved to track the money. It was a total team effort to take down a beast that had grown too big to ignore. The investigation soon revealed that this factory was just one small piece of a much larger puzzle. As the dust settled in Washington, investigators realized this wasn't an isolated incident. The trail of guns didn't just end in the Pacific Northwest. It stretched all the way to the other side of the country, revealing a pipeline of steel and fire that nobody saw coming. The weapons found in Washington were just the tip of the iceberg. The machine gun maker was the next target. While agents were counting rifles in Washington, another drama was unfolding on the streets of New York City. It turns out the demand for illegal firepower is so high that traffickers are building specialized pipelines to move guns across the country. And one of these pipelines led straight to a man named David Morris. On May 9th, 2025, federal and city authorities announced the arrest of 31-year-old Morris. They accused him of moving 47 firearms and massive amounts of ammunition from Georgia all the way up to Lower Manhattan. But here is the deal. He wasn't just selling handguns to street thugs, he was boasting about something much more dangerous. As you can see, the weapons are of all makes and calibers and models, and there are over 1,000. This is a big stash, hands down. That is beyond comprehension. During a weeks-long undercover sting, Morris allegedly sold 17 guns to officers who were posing as buyers. He met them near the waterfront in Lower Manhattan, acting like he was just making a delivery. But in his conversations, he dropped a bombshell. He claimed he had access to machine gun conversion kits. For those who don't know, these are small devices, sometimes called switches, that can turn a regular semi-automatic pistol into a fully automatic machine gun. With one of these tiny pieces of metal or plastic, a handgun can empty an entire magazine in the blink of an eye. It turns a defensive weapon into a tool for a massacre. And Morris said he had been in the gun trade for nearly a decade. The crazy part is the logistics. Morris allegedly transported these weapons from Georgia, driving them up the East Coast. This route is often called the Iron Pipeline.
We are following up tonight on that massive weapons seizure at a Los Angeles mansion. One man has been arrested.
It is a known corridor where guns from states with looser laws travel to states with stricter ones, but usually it is small-time crooks. Morris was moving volume. When authorities finally took him down, they displayed over 200 high-powered firearms seized in Georgia as part of the broader investigation. The table was covered in steel. There were assault rifles, squad automatic weapons, and even a .50 caliber machine gun. Imagine that, a .50 caliber machine gun, the kind used to take out vehicles just sitting in a stash house waiting for a buyer. The total value of the cash seized was over $250,000. Police raided that home and say the cash was behind a wall in the attic, packed in orange Home Depot buckets. They found $150,000 in each bucket. A loaded Tech-9 firearm was also taken from the home, but the cost to public safety would have been immeasurable. Investigators say this case exposes a growing stream of illegal weapons that flows into major cities and then often trickles down to the cartels. See, the cartels love American guns. They use the profits from selling methamphetamine and fentanyl to buy them. They rely on people like Morris or networks of straw purchasers to buy guns legally in the United States and then smuggle them. Once those guns cross the border, they are often modified for combat. Morris didn't just stick to guns, though. He was also allegedly dabbling in cocaine. On April 18th, he reportedly handed a sample of coke to an undercover officer. It was a classic case of diversifying the portfolio. Substances and guns go together like peanut butter and jelly in the underworld. Federal agents explained that this case was part of an ongoing effort to shut down these channels before the weapons reached the streets. They arrested 14 other people in connection with the ring. 9 of them were in the country illegally while the rest were citizens. It shows that this is a transnational problem that relies on help from both sides of the law. Morris is now facing serious time. Unlicensed dealing of firearms, firearms trafficking, and using a firearm in furtherance of substance trafficking. That last one carries a mandatory minimum of 5 years and could put him away for life. But while the authorities watched the East Coast, another massive shipment was moving through the South. Father and son rigs. Down in Texas, a routine inspection was about to turn into a historic seizure. It was the family business. At the Laredo border crossing in Texas, thousands of trucks pass through every single day. It is a river of commerce. But on one particular day, Customs and Border Protection officers noticed something off about 2 tractor trailers attempting to cross the bridge. It looked like a normal shipment. The paperwork seemed fine. The drivers, 41-year-old Abelino Ramirez Cortez and his son Edgar Ramirez Diaz, looked legitimate. One was a lawful permanent resident, the other a citizen. They were the perfect decoys, but the agents had a hunch, or maybe a scanner picked up an anomaly. They pulled the rigs over for a secondary inspection. What they found inside the trailers was an engineering masterpiece of deception. The walls of the trailers had been modified. There were secret compartments built into the frame, hidden so well that you could tap on them and hear nothing but solid wood.
We're not just talking about next door in terms of country, we're talking literally next door.
But when they pried them open, the agents found an arsenal. Nearly 400 firearms and thousands of rounds of ammunition were stacked inside. Police have discovered a case of machine guns and handguns, along with $20 million worth of substances. Detectives say the trailer was allegedly set up as a mobile substance lab. This wasn't a collection for a gun show. It was a resupply shipment for an army. The mix of rifles and ammo suggested it was heading straight to a Mexican cartel. And that is what most people don't realize. Everyone hears about substances coming in, but rarely do people see the rivers of steel flowing out. The discovery exposed the level of planning behind these smuggling runs. The compartments were expert work. It takes time, money, and skill to modify a big rig like that. And using a father and son team with legal status is a calculated move to lower the suspicion level. It shows that the cartels are recruiting heavily within the country, finding people who can blend in. Federal analysts quickly linked the shipment to the broader cartel trade routes. It is a cycle. Substances go north, cash and guns go south. If you stop the guns, you weaken their ability to protect the substances. It is all connected. This seizure at Laredo was a massive blow, but it also proved that the cartels are escalating. They are not just sneaking a few pistols in a car trunk anymore. They are moving weapons by the pallet load. Each firearm seized was cataloged and traced. The goal is to find out where they were bought. Who sold 400 guns to these guys? It turns out, many of these weapons are purchased legally at gun shops across America, then handed off to smugglers. It is a gray market that turns black the moment it hits the border. Are we actually winning this fight, or are we just catching the decoys while the real leaders hide? This discovery shows the danger is closer than anyone thinks. Like and subscribe now.